Good morning. This is Mona, and this is my morning view. Summer edition 2026. It finally stopped raining. There's a little bit of sun out right now. Everything's kind of wet. It is Feisty Friday. Feisty Friday. I wish I could bring some more feistiness to this, but I got a headache. So I'm going to have to go in and have a cup of coffee, like real coffee, not decaf. Maybe get this thing kicked before it gets further along. Partly because I was reading out here before, without my glasses. I already had a headache from wearing my glasses too long, and then I got a headache from not wearing my glasses, so it kind of doubled, right? I saw, as I was going on to Facebook, there was a post from our town page that people talk about. Open discussion is basically what it is. And there was somebody who had wrote something there and was talking about an incident that happened. And I'm like, well, what's this incident? So I clicked on the link, brought me to a news report. And the news report just, whoo, got me riled up. You talk about feisty. I was ready to be, remember I said a couple of weeks ago that I was called a daughter of thunder? Yeah, that's what I was thundering. Not loudly, but it was there. It was thundering loud on the inside. So what the situation is that there was someone on the police force that was a combat vet, and he was having some personal issues dealing with PTSD, and so he just checked himself into. He got involved with a group that helps with this, and checked himself into a facility like in California and helped him through the PTSD. He was there for 30 days, and then they checked him off and said he was able to go back to work with no restrictions. He gets back here, and it's like, oh, no, the town had different ideas. Not the first time that the town has their own ideas. Surprise, surprise. So I don't want to say too much about it, other than he was put in for dismissal. So he basically he has no job with 2 children, combat vet. And it just irritates me because people will go around going, oh, I support our veterans, but then things like this happen. It's like, exactly how do you support them? I'm not telling you to give them everything, okay? And nor do they ask for everything. What they ask for are those things that were once promised and no longer exist. Like when we went in, we were promised free medical if we retired. My husband doesn't have that. He retired. He does not have free medical. It was taken away. A lot of things were taken away throughout time. Even while we were in, things were being taken away. So, this, oh, we support our veterans. Well, the U.S. government doesn't support our veterans. Obviously, the local township doesn't support the veterans. They have veteran signs. I had mine up for a while because the school had purchased it. But they have these signs of people in the community who have served in the military, and they put them all along the main roads, right? And now they cost like $150. So it's kind of a moneymaker because it doesn't cost $150 to actually make the banner. It doesn't cost that much. And then the banner's already made, so why do you have to pay another $150 that, after 3 years to keep it up? Which I did not, by the way. So you have all these banners, but the town's not paying for them. The family members are paying for them. Or if somebody wants their own banner up, I personally would not want to put my own banner up. I wouldn't mind putting my husband's banner up. But for the most part, military guys, aren't all that, some are. So so when they got these banners, when they first started these things, right? Okay, the school knew about it. There was certain people in town that knew about it, that were involved in certain activities and stuff. But guess who did not know about it? The VFW. The VFW did not know that they were going to be putting banners up for those that had served. Interesting. Very interesting. So obviously there's an issue. Okay, so I'm right off the bat talking about my Fiesty Friday, right? Because it just as I was I was coming on here to do my morning view. That's all I was doing. And I saw this thing and I was like, oh, I want to read that without my glasses. Blinded. No, I'm not blind, but everything's blurry and now my head hurts. All right, so I didn't title this because I was like, I'm like, there's a few things I'd really like to say, but sometimes things are a little bit too close to say them here. So I don't say everything here. If it's me, I am open. I am like, here it is. It's laid out. You know, this is what I'm going through, or this is what I have done in the past. And, you know, the Lord's still working on me, right? The Lord's still, He's still forming me. There's still a lot of stuff like, you know, Daughter of Thunder. I still, just injustice just gets to me, right? So whenever there's injustice, I get riled up. And so, you know, this injustice with my grandson, or the injustice with this police officer who's lost his job, I'm like, I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to go down there and just stand. Keep my mouth shut. Stand for this person when it's brought to I guess the board there in town. Just as a you know, as a support. I don't know this officer personally. I don't think I've ever met him. I don't think I've ever talked to him. Don't know. But what I do know is that this is wrong. It's wrong to treat a veteran like this. Really, to treat anyone like this. Veterans are not the only ones with PTSD. Other people have gotten PTSD from other things. You have police officers that have been in a line of fire or something, and they have PTSD from their job. They've seen, you know, way too many accidents and wrecks where the bodies are, you know, kind of mangled, and then they can't sleep at night. It doesn't make them dangerous. Yes, sometimes PTSD has painted people as dangerous. It has happened where they don't realize where they are, and they think they're back in battle. You know, that became a big thing back in when Vietnam, the members of Vietnam came back, that they were having PTSD, and it was coming out in these ways of violence, but not because they meant to be violent, but because they just went back into their brain, thought that they were back in battle. And so they became combative. Scaring their families. Frightening their families. Was that an overall majority of people with PTSD? No. No. Wasn't. You had a veterans organization helping veterans. It may not have been a veterans organization, but they helped veterans. Or it wasn't even veterans. It was first responders. First responders, right? He went to a place for first responders. They know what these people see. They know what these people do. They know what comes up, right? And they said he's fit for duty. And there's laws on the books here, at least in New Jersey, to prevent people like that from losing their jobs. And yet it was still pursued. It gets me riled up when injustice happens. So it looks like this is going in the area of injustice. Injustice. Because we see a lot of injustice in the world. And some people look at injustice maybe a different way than others. So they're looking at one side of the injustice and not the other side of injustice. You got to remember that just has equal scales. It has equal scales. So if it's just, it's even. If it's unjust, then the scales are tipped out of balance. And the problem with us is in human beings in general is that we tend to go, oh, there's injustice. Let's put some safeguards over here so that the injustice is equaled out and it doesn't happen. But what happens is that pendulum swings clear over to the other side, and now it's still unjust because now it's way over on this side. Instead of keeping that center space of justice, it's a constant pendulum swinging back and forth from one side to the other, always making it an injustice. It's like, what makes it just? That it's just for me? It's just for you? Injustice is a lot of times in our head of how we perceive it. I thought it was unjust that my husband didn't get a position in the police department because he didn't get to study, take courses, because he was too busy serving his country and then trying to make a living for his family. But was it really injustice? And then I thought it was unjust that they hired an individual that was related to somebody on the board or on the council or whatever position it was back in the day. Somebody who already had a relative on the force. I was like, that's unjust. But at the same time, no, it wasn't, because that individual qualified. They did qualify. It wasn't like they took somebody who didn't qualify. Right? So it wasn't injustice. It was just, what would you call that? Just bad set of bad luck, I guess. I don't know. You know, just circumstances that didn't turn out in your favor. That happens. Doesn't make it unjust. So, justice. What does that look like? And we can take anything. We can take anything and bring it to the center and see where it's out of alignment. And when we get our cars aligned, right? What happens if your car isn't aligned? You're driving down the road, it's a straight road, you let go of the wheel, you want to see where it goes, and it veers to the left or it veers to the right. It's not aligned. And if we are not aligned to what is just, we may not notice it unless we take our hands off of it and look at it from the perspective of the situation itself. Justice is something that in a fallen world will always be marred, because we're in a fallen world. But if we hold on to what is just from the perspective of how God designed it to be. How He designed justice to look like. If we hold that as our plumb line, it's easier for us to see what is just and what is unjust. And I think anybody can see the injustice of things very clearly when it's something that they can relate to. But they don't always see it when it's something they can't relate to. And so when the pendulum swings, they're saying, oh, we finally have justice for these people. But if it's not a win-win-win, it's not a win. Win-lose is a mentality that it's definitely not of God. God is not a win-lose mentality other than the enemy of our soul. That's already been won. He's already lost. So I guess there it's a win-lose situation. But that's between spiritual forces that we don't understand. That is beyond our comprehension of understanding, because we're not of that world. We're here. We're earthbound, with an earthbound intellect. And because we have this earthbound intellect, we see with our earthly eyes, comprehend with our earthly heart. And unless you follow Jesus, unless you invite Him into your heart, unless you invite Holy Spirit, then you can't have the mind of Christ. But you can have the mind of Christ if you do follow Him. And so when you have the mind of Christ, you can understand things that you normally wouldn't understand. And so you can see the perspective of both sides. You can see the perspective. We're not talking an evil... See, people want to villainize everything. They're like, this is good and this is bad. These are the good people. These are the bad people. This is the enemy. This is our friend. And it's like, that's not reality. That is not reality. Most people are not evil. You know? They're not. They're just trying to survive, just like everybody else is trying to survive. And some of them have some really bad, what would you call that, ideologies and spaces where they were taught that this is how you get ahead. You know, you step on everybody's backs, you move forward, you leave the carcasses behind, and that's how you succeed in life. They were taught wrong. Some of them are inherently going to choose wrong because it's what they know or it's what they want. But most people do not want to hurt other people along the way. They want to succeed without hurting people. Most people. But guess what happens along the way? Because we're human, people get hurt. See, when I get a little conflicted because I've been military, right? In the military, it's the ends justifies the means. You want victory. You're going to get that victory. And sometimes that's even with breaking the rules that they set before you. Just don't get caught. Because if you break the rules, you're going down. If you get caught. If you don't break the rules, if you do break the rules and you don't get caught and you bring victory, guess what? Now you're the hero. Or maybe nobody will ever know that you were the hero. Nobody will ever know that you went beyond the borders to take care of business. I'm talking about a real situation that happened in Vietnam. Okay, so I was not in Vietnam, just to let you know. I'm not that old. Some of my friends are like, I'm ready to beat you right now, calling me old. And they can probably beat me. So anyways, with that, so the ends justifies the means in my military mind, because I'm like, you have to go do what you got to do. That's it. That's all there is. Everybody wants to be that rule follower. I am a massive rule follower until I see it as an injustice. And then I'm like, this rule is BS. So sometimes I think some rules can be broken. But if everybody chose to break the rules that they choose to break because they feel differently about them, it would be kind of mayhem, wouldn't it? It'd be kind of mayhem. So rules are set up to help injustices. That's what this rule that was, this law that was passed in New Jersey to help those with PTSD, that they wouldn't lose their jobs. It was, I think it was for first responders. I don't recall exactly how it worked, but either way, because like I said, first responders, they have PTSD too. People that work in emergency rooms, some of the things they see. So it isn't just held to military people. But for some reason, there's this stigma to military people that theirs is violent. But there's rules. There's rules. And it's to help injustices. It's to help injustices. And on the other hand, see, that's that military side of me, right? The ends justifies the means. You're going to do it. But there's rules set up, right? Because it would be mayhem for everybody to do their own thing. And the other side of me is a Christian. The ends don't justify the means. The means is what it's all about. And the means will bring you to the end that's supposed to happen. By doing the means, you get to an ends. And we don't have the bigger picture. So it might not look like the picture we thought would be the success, the victory, the winning. But it's not. It looks completely different than that. Sometimes those things that happen, that it's like, but I did everything right. Brought you exactly where you're supposed to be. I've been going back to Joseph lately. To Daniel. To a lot of injustices that took place in the Bible. And it brought them right to where they needed to be. So Joseph gets thrown into a pit. That was a little just. That was a little just. He ticked his brothers off, and then he was going to be a tattletale. He was a tattletale, and just a lot of non-wise decisions on Joseph's part. He got thrown into a pit. That was just. But then he got sold as a slave. That was unjust. Shouldn't have sold him as a slave. They wanted to kill him. They wanted to kill him. The oldest brother figured he'd go rescue him from the pit later and send him back home. But a couple other brothers, he said, hey, let's sell him versus killing him. And so he was sent to Egypt as a slave. And then he was doing what he was supposed to be doing and was unjustly accused and sent to prison. So he went to prison unjust. Kind of like that dream I was having this week. I think I mentioned to you that I was having a dream about being sent to prison unjust. I don't remember if I mentioned it here on my morning view. But that would have been Tuesday morning if I would have mentioned it, probably. Maybe Wednesday. So with this went to prison unjustly, doing what he was supposed to do. And it's like, well, that's those moments when you say, damned if I do, damned if I don't, that's why this is for adults only, because sometimes little idioms like that come out. So anyways, had he not been where he was, everybody would have died from a famine in that whole area, including his family. And Abraham's promise would have ended. It wouldn't have come to fruition because the promise was through Abraham. The blessing was through Abraham. So it took being in a space of injustice to save a nation, to save a world as we know it. Daniel was taken, made a eunuch, got set up to be a high-ranking official, kind of in an exiled land. And it was through him that the wise men knew about Jesus' coming. More so than the priests and the scribes. And they knew what to do. More than the priests and the scribes. It brought recognition that he's a king. Because he wasn't going to receive that from his own. Jesus was innocent and died for us. It seems unjust. And yet for all of humanity, we receive a promise. And that was the promise that was given to Abraham. That through his line would come a redeemer, a restorer. Justice is in his hands. And that's pretty much all I got for you today. All right, blessings, everybody. Make sure you go over to YouTube, Mona E. Harrison. Mona E. Harrison, different than my Facebook profile. Like, share, comment both on Facebook and YouTube. Subscribe and get all the bells and whistles. All right, and I will see you on Monday. Blessings, everybody. Have a great day. And I can't see if anybody's watching because the screen is darkened. All right, blessings.